Welcome to this explainer on fueling the machine, the mechanics of cellular respiration. We rarely stop to think about the invisible, biological engine that powers literally all living things. But right now, at this very second, a microscopic world of mechanics is working overtime just to keep you alive. Let's dive right into how this all works. So I want you to ask yourself, what exactly powers your cells? Seriously, think about the sheer, mind-boggling scale of it. Right now, your body's performing a massive amount of continuous, relentless work. I mean, every single heartbeat, every breath you take, even the firing of the neurons in your brain required to comprehend the words I'm saying, it all demands a massive amount of fuel. But how does the human machine actually generate it? Well, the answer lies in a microscopic mechanism that is working tirelessly in the background. Section 1. The engine of life, defining respiration. Before we can really see how this biological machine runs, we need to strip it right down to its core components. Now, when you hear respiration, you might just think of breathing in and out, but fundamentally, it's a chemical process. Basically, nutrient molecules, specifically glucose, are systematically broken down by enzymes to release usable energy. In biology, that ultimate energetic payout is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Think of it this way. If glucose is the unrefined crude oil of your body, enzymes act like the refinery, breaking it down to yield ATP, which is the pure, high-octane fuel your cells can actually spend. Without this constant, ongoing conversion, the energy stored in your food would just sit there, completely inaccessible to the tissues that desperately need it. Moving on to Section 2, where the energy goes, fueling biological processes. Okay, so we've got our fuel generated. The very next question is, how exactly does the body choose to spend it? Well, all that microscopic ATP directly drives our most tangible macro-level functions, primarily muscle contractions. This covers your voluntary skeletal movements, like swinging your arms or going for a run. But critically, it also powers your involuntary systems. It maintains the relentless, never-ending pumping of your heart muscle, and it drives peristalsis all throughout the alimentary canal to process your food. Every single twitch, every step, every pump is quite literally an ATP transaction. The sheer volume of energy required simply to keep these baseline mechanical processes running hour after hour is absolutely staggering. But here's the crazy part. The most demanding work is completely invisible to the naked eye. Respiration is the absolute bedrock of essential cellular functions. It powers protein synthesis, constantly chaining amino acids together to construct the very tissues of your body. It fuels the rapid-fire transmission of nerve impulses across synapses, which is what allows your brain to communicate with the rest of your nervous system in just milliseconds. And crucially, it drives mitosis, or cell division, allowing tissue to heal, regenerate, and grow. Your body is basically a non-stop, high-energy construction site, and ATP is the currency paying for every single bit of that labor. Another highly specific, energy-intensive mechanism that relies heavily on this fuel is called active transport. Now, usually molecules just passively diffuse from areas of high concentration to low concentration. It's the path of least resistance. But active transport spends ATP to force molecules against that natural concentration gradient. It's the cellular equivalent of swimming upstream against a raging current. And without respiration, this critical transport simply wouldn't be possible. This process is absolutely essential for tasks like absorbing nutrients in your intestines or maintaining the precise balance of ions in your nerve cells. It is a continuous, uphill battle that demands a constant supply of energy. And if you're a warm-blooded organism like us, a massive portion of your ATP budget goes strictly toward thermoregulation, maintaining a constant internal body temperature. And this isn't just about feeling comfortable, it's about operational security. Keeping warm ensures that those enzyme-controlled reactions we discussed earlier continue at a steady, predictable rate. If your core temperature drops too much, enzyme kinetics slow down, and the entire biological engine stalls out. We literally burn fuel just to keep the furnace hot enough to keep burning fuel. Pretty wild, right? Let's look at Section 3, testing the engine, the yeast experiment. So we understand the theoretical mechanics now, but seeing this engine run under controlled conditions reveals exactly how sensitive it is to its environment. The primary diagnostic question we want to answer here is, how does temperature affect respiration? We know it's vital for mammals, but how exactly does it alter the raw performance of this biological engine? To isolate the variables and actually observe this chemical process in real time, we can use a much simpler organism, yeast.
By looking at a single-celled organism, we can strip away all the crazy complexities of a larger body and focus entirely on the cellular machinery itself.
Setting up the experiment requires a pretty methodical approach. First, we combine a glucose solution and a suspension of dried yeast in a sidearm boiling tube. Next, that tube goes into a water bath at a fixed temperature, and we let it rest for a few minutes just to ensure the internal environment completely stabilizes. Then, a gas syringe is attached to the sidearm, sealing off the entire system. Over a set period of time, we simply record the volume of gas produced. Basically, we're feeding the yeast the precise fuel it needs, and then we're measuring its resulting exhaust.
And that exhaust? It's carbon dioxide. As the yeast actively breaks down the glucose for energy, it respires, pumping out carbon dioxide gas, which collects in and physically pushes against the syringe. This is direct, visible, completely measurable proof of the biological engine at work. The faster that syringe fills up, the faster the yeast is respiring, which gives us a flawless real-time metric for energy production. When we run this exact same process across several different temperatures, a very clear cause and effect relationship emerges. As the ambient temperature rises, enzyme activity increases. This directly yields a faster rate of respiration, dramatically spiking the carbon dioxide output. But listen, for this data to mean anything at all, absolute control is required. Every single other variable, the volume of the yeast, the glucose concentration, the pH level, must remain strictly identical across tests. Otherwise, the results are completely compromised. It just perfectly highlights how incredibly sensitive these biological pathways are to their conditions.
So you might be thinking, if hotter means faster, does the engine just rev infinitely? Well, not exactly. If we plot the rate of gas production on a graph, the efficiency climbs steadily up and up until it hits a very specific climactic peak. We call this the optimum temperature. This is the biological sweet spot. It's the exact temperature where the enzymes are catalyzing reactions at their absolute maximum speed without sustaining any structural damage. For human enzymes, this sits perfectly right around our natural body temperature, maximizing our energetic output right where we normally exist. But if you push the heat past that optimum threshold, you hit a dramatic biological failsafe. The engine overheats. The enzymes begin to denature. This means their complex, three-dimensional physical shapes literally break down, destroying their active sites so they can no longer bind to the glucose substrate. As the cellular machinery essentially melts down, respiration plummets. The engine fails entirely. It's a pretty stark reminder that life operates on a knife's edge. Just a few degrees too hot, and the very mechanics that sustain us simply fall apart. So we've seen exactly how enzymes dismantle nutrient molecules to yield ATP, and how strictly temperature governs this entire operation. But this leaves us with a really critical variable to ponder. There are actually two distinct pathways for this engine to run. Based on everything we've discussed today, how do you think aerobic respiration fundamentally differs from anaerobic respiration? Consider what those conditions imply about how our cells might survive in extreme oxygen-deprived environments. It's a massive shift in how the engine operates, and quite frankly, a perfect place for us to pick up next time. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep wondering.